as a psalm was read, the coffin descended to its final resting place in the royal family vault of St. George's Chapel.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 most watched events in history.
Argentina, champions of the world!
For this list, we're looking at scheduled historic events that drew the highest viewing numbers on television. We will not be including scripted TV episodes or live disasters like the Challenger explosion. Did you happen to catch any of these live? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20. The first debate between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy.
The candidates need no introduction. The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy.
Television was a relatively new medium in 1960, and it opened up a world of possibilities in the political sphere. One of the most important was the broadcast of presidential debates. Millions of Americans tuned in to watch Richard Nixon battle John F. Kennedy in the first ever televised debate. This was not a regular occurrence at the time, and wouldn't become so until the mid-70s, so that made the occasion even more special.
I don't believe in big government, but I believe in effective governmental action. And I think that's the only way that the United States is going to maintain its freedom.
The first debate occurred on the night of September 26, 1960, and was hosted by Chicago's WBBM-TV. Between 60 and 70 million Americans tuned into the event, which were huge numbers at the time. In fact, it accounted for roughly 2/3 of the country's adult population.
It is essential that a man who's president of this country certainly stand for every program that will mean for growth. And I stand for programs that will mean growth and progress.
Number 19. The Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, live from New York, The Ed Sullivan Show.
By 1964, it was clear that television was having a major impact on politics and pop culture. Enter a little band called the Beatles. The group appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show on the night of February 9th, 1964, and music was never the same. The Beatles performed a number of popular songs, including She Loves You and I Wanna Hold Your Hand, and an estimated 73 million people tuned in to watch and listen. The broadcast received a rating of 45.3, meaning 45% of all American households had watched the broadcast. Not only did this break television records, but it launched Beatlemania and the larger British invasion of pop music.
When I say that song, I wanna hold your hand.
Number 18. The grand opening of Disneyland.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
Ask any child where they want to go on vacation, and chances are that Disneyland is near the top of the list. Now a worldwide institution, Disneyland officially opened for business on July 17, 1955.
The E.P. Ripley is rolling around the Santa Fe Disneyland railroad tracks with Walt Disney at the control.
And what a disaster it was. Pretty much everything that could go wrong did. Traffic was backed up for miles, the park ran out of food, many rides broke down, and there were few working water fountains during the 100-degree day. Even the live broadcast of its opening was a disaster, with constant technical difficulties coming from an overworked crew. Regardless, this was a huge event, and an estimated 90 million people watched the park's grand opening through their television screens.
Walt, you've made a bum out of Barnum today, but we've got to go.
I know, but I just want to say a word of thanks to all the artists, the workers, and everybody that helped make this dream come true.
Number 17. Richard Nixon's resignation speech.
This is the 37th time I have spoken to you from this office, where so many decisions have been made that shape the history of this nation.
It was August 8, 1974, and the infamous Watergate scandal was finally coming to an end with the resignation of Richard Nixon. This was the historic finale of 2 years' worth of buildup, and expectations were startlingly high for TV figures. In fact, many industry analysts predicted that Nixon's resignation speech would become the most watched event in television history.
In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I have always tried to do what was best for the nation.
It didn't quite reach those heights, however, with estimates ranging between 90 and 110 million viewers. A certain event had already exceeded those numbers, but we'll get to that in a bit. While this audience didn't meet expectations, it still represented an enormous interest from the general public. After his speech, Nixon left the Oval Office with many eyes on his back.
I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body.
Number 16, Super Bowl 57.
Mahomes looking that way, throwing that way. Kelsey got it! Touchdown!
If anyone says football is dying, you can just show them the viewing figures for Super Bowl 57. This game was played on the night of February 12, 2023, with the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35. The event took place inside Glendale State Farm Stadium, with nearly 68,000 people packed between its walls. The television figures were also enormous, and a huge success for Fox, with 115 million viewers tuning in to watch the Chiefs hoist the trophy.
I just want to shout out my teammates, man. We challenged each other. It took everybody to win this football game. So shout out my teammates, baby. We're Super Bowl champs, baby. Let's go.
This not only makes Super Bowl 57 the most watched Super Bowl ever, but also the second most watched TV broadcast in American history. So yeah, football is doing just fine. Number 15, the O.J. Simpson Verdict. Nothing brings the country together like a sensational true crime story. O.J. Simpson was once one of the most popular and beloved football players in the history of the sport. As of 2023, he continues to hold the record for the highest single-season yards per game average, a feat he achieved back in 1973. Understandably, the country was left in a state of complete shock when he was put on trial for the murders of Ron Goldman and his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson.
Your Honor, at this time, the people would ask that Mr. Simpson step forward and try on the glove recovered at Bundy as well as the glove recovered at Rockingham.
The trial was extensively followed by a deeply interested American public. After 11 months, a verdict was reached on October 3, 1995, with over 150 million viewers watching Simpson be acquitted of both charges.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
Number 14, the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton.
Arriving on the big day, the guests have been taking their places at Westminster Abbey ahead of the marriage of Prince William and Kate Middleton.
Royal weddings are a huge public affair, and they continue to draw enormous crowds from around the world. One of the biggest of our time occurred on April 29, 2011, when Prince William married Catherine Middleton.
I pronounce that they be man and wife together in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
This was a relatively basic affair by royal wedding standards, as William was not the heir apparent at the time. But even a small royal wedding can pull the biggest crowds, both in person and through the television screen. 1 million people observed the procession between Westminster Abbey and Buckingham Palace in person. And while global television viewing estimates are hard to gauge, most sources place the number between 122 and 176 million. Number 13, the state funeral of John F. Kennedy.
His character, his vision, and his quiet courage have enabled him to chart a course for us.
Unfortunately, it's hard to estimate exactly how many people watched the state funeral of John F. Kennedy. For one thing, the funeral was covered by 3 major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, whereas most events are only on one. Furthermore, the broadcast was aired live and uninterrupted over a duration of 70 hours. By one estimate, the funeral was seen by a collective 180 million people, but the real figure is likely much higher.
Bearing the burden of their own sorrow, 250,000 people braved near-freezing weather to pass by the dead president in tribute. Some waited for as long as 12 hours.
According to the Los Angeles Times, 96% of American households watch more than 30 hours of the funeral on television. And that's not even accounting for those abroad. Regardless, it is evident that this was a monumental piece of history that millions wish to respectfully honor.
He is relieved of the almost superhuman burden we imposed on him. May he rest in peace.
Number 12, The Wall, live in Berlin.
A snapshot in the family album.
Roger Waters of Pink Floyd fame was once asked if he would ever again perform The Wall in concert. He said he might whenever the Berlin Wall came down, but otherwise no. Well, the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and Waters was a man of his word. He staged The Wall live in Berlin to celebrate the occasion, and the concert was held on the night of July 21st, 1990. The event was produced by Tony Hollingsworth, and approximately 350,000 people attended the concert in person. A further 500 million people watched the historic event on television, speaking to the respective influence of both the Berlin Wall and Pink Floyd's seminal album. Number 11. The 2011 Cricket World Cup Final. Cricket isn't a game you hear too much about in America, but it's clearly huge in the rest of the world. The sport routinely draws massive viewing figures, which is most evident by the final match of the 2011 Cricket World Cup, played between India and Sri Lanka. This game was a huge cultural event in India. Not only did it occur in the host nation's Wankhede Stadium, but it was watched by an estimated 135 million people throughout the country. According to the International Cricket Council, 558 million people from around the world watched India defeat Sri Lanka for their second World Cup title.
This is a champion team. ये champions की team है. ये champion team है.
Number 10. The Moon Landing.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You know, humans walking on the moon is a pretty big deal. Understandably, a ton of people tuned in, not wanting to miss out on what could very well be the most important event in modern history. This is the aforementioned broadcast that defeated Richard Nixon's resignation speech in terms of numbers. While that drew between 90 and 110 million viewers, the moon landing was observed by 125 million Americans.
Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you.
And while it was the US that landed on the moon, this was a moment that belonged to the world at large. And they all tuned in, to the extent of 650 million global viewers. One giant leap for mankind indeed.
For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with America in recognizing what an immense feat this is.
Number 9. CCTV New Year's Gala 2018. Hosted on China's CCTV 1, the New Year's Gala, or Chunwan as it's often called, is an annual variety show that takes place on the eve of the Chinese New Year. According to the Guinness World Records, the New Year's Gala is the most watched television program in the entire world, attracting hundreds of millions on an annual basis. The 2018 edition was very special, as it reached the incredible milestone of 1 billion viewers. It's easy to see why the event is so popular, as it features wonderful feats of dancing, music, and even drama. Number 8. Aloha from Hawaii via satellite.
We can go on together with suspicious minds.
It's hard to quantify to modern listeners just how popular Elvis Presley was. On January 14, 1973, Presley played a show at the Honolulu International Center that was broadcast live throughout Asia and Oceania. It was not shown live in the United States, but NBC aired a 90-minute special about the concert over 2 months later. Aloha from Hawaii was an enormous success in various Asian countries, with over 90% of the Philippines, 80% of South Korea, and 70% of Hong Kong tuning in to watch. When it was all said and done, an estimated 1.5 billion people saw the concert on TV, although these figures have been questioned by some. Number 7. The 2022 FIFA World Cup Final.
From the Andes to the Alps, from River Plate to the banks of the Seine, our planet unites around its ultimate game.
The 2022 FIFA World Cup faced much criticism owing to it taking place in Qatar. But that didn't stop billions from tuning in to watch the final between Argentina and France. Taking place on December 18, 2022, Argentina emerged victorious after defeating France 4-2 in a penalty shootout. The entire World Cup was a rating success, with the opening match between Qatar and Ecuador drawing 550 million viewers. But it was the final that was the true ratings juggernaut, attracting approximately 1.5 billion people throughout the world. It even garnered 16.8 million viewers in the United States, making it the most watched World Cup final in the country's history.
Argentina, champions of the world!
Number 6. Live Aid. Speaking of massive culture-defining concerts, let's talk Live Aid. Known as the Global Jukebox, Live Aid was organized by Bob Geldof and Midge Ure to raise money for a devastating famine that struck Ethiopia in the early 80s. In a fun global show of support, Live Aid took place simultaneously at London's Wembley Stadium and Philadelphia's John F. Kennedy Stadium. A concert is nothing without its lineup, and Live Aid had an all-timer, featuring names like U2, Queen, Elton John, Led Zeppelin, and Madonna. With such stellar acts and a worthwhile cause behind it, Live Aid drew unprecedented viewing figures. It's estimated nearly 2 billion people watched the concert on TV, equating to roughly 40% of the entire world's population.
We are the champions. We are the champions.
Number 5. Leon Spinks vs. Muhammad Ali 2.
They both wish one another good luck, and the magic moment has arrived.
In one corner was Leon Spinks, the then reigning WBA and the ring heavyweight champion. In the other was contender Muhammad Ali, who hoped to claim the titles from the undefeated Spinks. This was a rematch from an earlier bout, which saw Spinks winning by split decision and stripping Ali of his many belts. 63,000 people packed into New Orleans Superdome to watch the two giants box, and 90 million Americans witnessed the bout on television. However, this was just a fraction of the global audience, as an estimated 2 billion viewers watched from around the world. In the end, Ali won by unanimous decision.
The new champion, Muhammad Ali! Muhammad Ali, the new champion!
Number 4. The funeral of Michael Jackson.
I stand here trying to find words of comfort, solace, trying to understand why the Lord has taken our brother.
It's clear that music speaks to a lot of people, and it's often the thing that helps bring us all together. King of Pop Michael Jackson passed away on June 25, 2009 after suffering an overdose on medication. His memorial service was held 12 days later on July 7th and occurred inside LA's Staples Center.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love.
This was the type of television event that superseded everything else, and most major networks were devoted to covering the service. The funeral was even played in movie theaters in the US and many other countries. It was broadcast live around the world through both traditional television and the internet, and it reportedly attracted a global audience of 2.5 billion people.
We want to thank you all for loving my brother and supporting our family. Thank you and good night.
Number 3. The funeral of Princess Diana. On July 29, 1981, Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles in front of a global audience of 750 million people. 16 years later, over 3 times as many viewers watched her funeral. Diana famously died in a car accident on August 31, 1997, and her funeral was held on September 6th.
We pray for the members of the royal family.
It attracted over 30 million viewers in the United States, despite taking place very early in the morning. Another 31 million people watched in the United Kingdom, making it the second most viewed event in the country's history behind the 1966 FIFA World Cup final. When global figures were totaled and accounted for, the funeral of Princess Diana attracted roughly 2.5 billion viewers.
There has never been a funeral at which so many mourners have been present, at which so many of the people of this country have come to pay their respect.
Number 2. The 1996 Summer Olympics opening ceremony. The opening ceremony of the 2008 Olympics was a monumental television event, witnessed by at least 1 billion people. Unfortunately, the viewing figures are hard to quantify, with many different sources reporting different numbers. The story is much clearer with the 1996 Olympics, and the results are staggering. These Summer Olympics were held in Atlanta, and the opening ceremony took place inside the city's Centennial Olympic Stadium. With big names like Muhammad Ali, Celine Dion, and John Williams in attendance, the opening ceremony was seen by 3.5 billion people from across the world, making it the second most watched event in television history. It remained in the top spot for over 25 years, until it was dethroned by... Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The state funeral of Elizabeth II.
After 4 full days of lying in state, the coffin of Queen Elizabeth left Westminster Hall.
History was being witnessed throughout the early 21st century. Queen Elizabeth II had been in power since 1952, making her the longest reigning monarch in British history. With over 70 years on the throne, Elizabeth beat the record previously held by Queen Victoria, who ruled for 63 years between 1837 and 1901. Unfortunately, Elizabeth's reign ended with her death on September 8, 2022 at the age of 96. Her state funeral occurred on September 19th and drew an estimated and unprecedented 4 billion viewers from across the world. And with that, Queen Elizabeth set another record that is unlikely to be surpassed in our lifetimes.
As a psalm was read, the coffin descended to its final resting place in the royal family vault of St. George's Chapel.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.